Hey everybody, what's going on? Long time no see. I think it's been about a month since my last video. Yeah, probably. I've been taking long gaps between my videos, so I don't know if anyone's still watching, but if you are, that's cool. I started a job, so that takes up a lot of my time. But in this past month, I've gotten some good books, I've read some stuff, and I wanted to share that with you. I also have some Blu-rays too, that I'll do in a different video, I think, but that's basically what's been up with me that I felt the need to upload. So I wanted to start with books that I have read because I picked some ones up that I haven't gotten to yet, like TBR, and some ebooks as well. But I'm gonna go down the line here. I'm gonna save probably the best ones for last. But I'll start with the Descent by Jeff Long, and I'll just do like mini reviews for all of these. This is a interesting book. It's basically about, I think it's from like 1992, I want to say. So it's a little bit older. 1999, actually. Okay. It's basically about there's a huge cave system underground. Of course, we have caves underground, but it's like huge cave system that goes all the way down below the seabed. And it's infested with this basically like demons called Hadals that are essentially what you would assume would be hell, as if like hell is real. And there's a lot of different things happening in this book. At its core, it's really an expedition novel about a group of scientists and researchers who go down there to try to map that out. And I ended up giving this one like 2.5 stars because it has, as if you look this book up, most people are going to tell you that it has an amazing opening chapter, which it does. The opening chapter is straight horror. As a matter of fact, if you've ever seen the film The Descent, it's pretty much the same as this opening chapter, to the point where I think Jeff Long sued the filmmakers because it is that close, and to the point where there are things that happen in that chapter that just happen in the movie. So they definitely ripped off this opening chapter. But if you want a great horror story to read, read the opening chapter of this. Maybe get it on your Kindle or something. And then the book is totally different. And I didn't mind that per se. It was kind of like almost like a dark fantasy, global epidemic sort of, apocalyptic sort of book in ways. There's a lot of world building that happens in the first 75 to 100 pages of this book that I thought was interesting, but then the book kind of just goes downhill consistently from there. The sections of, the journey, the adventure going underground, there are some interesting things that are happening, but there are just so many plots that are brought up, like, I don't know what the deal is with this book. He just keeps bringing up more and more and more plot points, and you can see as he keeps doing that, it's like he writes himself into a corner, and he has to find a way to solve that. Sometimes a plot point will be brought up, and you're like, oh, okay, and it's solved on like the next page. It's kind of a mess, and it's kind of a messy book. The writing in here is often pretty good, but then you get dialogue that is like action movie levels of dialogue. So it's a very wildly inconsistent book. I kind of just pushed through and finished it to kind of hope something would come of it, but it honestly left me feeling kind of meh. I gave it 2.5 because I felt like the opening chapter was phenomenal, and there were some really fun moments in the book, but there was just a lot of weak stuff as well. So 2.5 stars. Sorry if you can hear the trucks driving around. I haven't done a video in a month, and of course I start the camera and there's like garbage trucks and stuff. Next I'll do Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. This is the sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw, which I believe I reviewed on this channel. I think I did about a year ago or so, maybe a little less than that. But that was a fun book. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as some of the other stuff I've read of his, but it was very fun. I really liked the character Jade Daniels. I know that she gets on people's nerves, but I really liked her, and I thought it was kind of fun what he was doing. Stephen Graham Jones I always like because he writes in a very cool style, and he's a very gifted writer, but the core of what he writes about is fun stuff. I think he writes about what he wants to, but he just does it in a very good way. This one, unfortunately, I didn't really think it was as good. I think the general consensus is that people tend to like this one more. I gave this one like 3 stars, which for Stephen Graham Jones is kind of low. It just seemed like a bit of a mess. Like, it seemed like an unnecessary second book. And as a matter of fact, I think that having read this now, I really feel like he should have just left it alone and done one book, and it would have been fine as a cool little story. This was super slow going, and I don't want to get too much into it to spoil it, but Jade isn't the main focus in this book, so there's a lot of different POVs, and it just kind of felt messy. And of course, if you read him, it can be hard to follow what he's saying sometimes. So, add in multiple POVs and a very slow-moving plot. Sometimes I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what is the point of this? It just didn't click with me, unfortunately. I mean, I'll probably read the third one because I have to see it through, but I was disappointed with that one. I think it was very well written, and there were some fun moments, but it just didn't hit the mark for me. What will I do next? I'll do this one. This was Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This is a non-fiction novel about the Osage Native Americans that were in Oklahoma, and essentially how in the early 20th century they struck oil on their reservation, and there was this epidemic of crimes and murders that took place, which a lot of people very quickly started figuring out was probably to get those oil rights back from these Native Americans. It's a very fascinating book. It's very grim, but it's very well written. It's very, very well written. It reminds me of like In Cold Blood, how it reads like fiction. It's set up like a mystery, but it's nonfiction though. And David Grann, this is the only book of his I've read. He has some other good ones, I know, but wow, what a researcher, what a journalist. There is some top-notch journalism going on in here, especially in the later parts of the book when you read more from his perspective of his, he talks about his insight into this whole thing. It was just really good. I gave it like a 4 or 4.5. I mean, it wasn't like whoa, but it's something, as he mentions, most people don't know about this, and it's crazy that people don't know about what went on. It was a great book. I highly recommend it if you're looking for some sort of nonfiction crime to read. And there's a movie coming out directed by Scorsese. I'm sure a lot of you folks have heard about that, but that comes out in, I believe, October. But yeah, highly recommend this. This was a great read. Quick read, very good. Next I have 2 more that I've read recently. I should say I'm reading a couple books right now. I always like to read a few at a time, I'm reading a book called Bubblegum by Adam Levin. I don't have that one with me. I left it at work, but that is a huge, like 800-page book, and it is wacky, totally postmodern, very, very reminiscent of David Foster Wallace, the way he writes, but even a bit more neurotic. It is just wacky, and it is like, I don't know how else to describe it, a postmodern novel. Just totally neurotic, tons of tangents, plays around with the form. It is totally not for everybody. But if you like David Foster Wallace and you like, I'm trying to think of, he even reminds me of like Thomas Pynchon with the humor. It's like so wacky and ridiculous sometimes. It's like very, who actually reminds me of David Foster Wallace, Thomas Pynchon, and Charlie Kaufman, the director. But Charlie Kaufman wrote a book called Ant Kind that is like just nuts, and it reminds me a lot of that. But at the same time, although it's a difficult book to read for many reasons, it's such a dense frickin' book, there are some beautiful things that he's writing about, and he has a way of just writing some shit that is so ridiculous you like are embarrassed to say it to somebody what you're reading, but there's some poignancy in the text. It's a very good book. It's one of those books that is not going to be rewarding for everybody, and I think a lot of people aren't even going to be able to get through like 15 pages of it. But if you're into that stuff, I definitely recommend it. He has a couple other books called Mount Chicago's a new one. The Instructions, which I know was one of his first book, which was pretty popular. And he has a short story collection called Hot Pink. But it's really good. I'm about 550 pages in, so I have a little bit to go. But yeah, it's a good one. And then I'm also reading Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcias, who is probably, or Garcia, excuse me, who's probably best known for writing Mexican Gothic. This one, actually, cool little thing, is signed by her, so that's neat. I haven't read any of her books. I just, I've heard of her and wanted to check her out, and I saw this at my local bookstore. I saw it was signed, so I said, hey, I'll check it out. And I'm a little indifferent on it currently. I'm about 100 pages in. It's extremely slow going, and I'm not sure. It's a short book. It's only 300 pages, so I'm a third of the way through, and it's really slow. It's more of a character development book, I feel, but it still oddly feels a bit pulpy in its writing, so I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I'm going to see it through, and I'll let you know. And then the last one, two more that I've read. Sorry, this is an 11-minute video, but it's fine. I haven't been here in a while. And by the way, I hope everybody's doing well. I know, especially with the current state of YouTube, when you leave for a couple days, it's like no one wants to watch anymore. I've been gone for a month. But for those people that do watch this, thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'll always be here. If I decide to shut down my YouTube channel, I will let you know. But sometimes I'll be gone for a while and have some coffee. Happy birthday, by the way. Certainly it's somebody's birthday out there. Okay, two more that I've read, and then I'm going to show you some books I picked up, and we'll be done. I actually have a mass market paperback copy, but it's upstairs somewhere, so I grabbed this. But this is the complete works of Charles Portis. This is Library of America. I wanted to showcase this because, you know what? I have another book. We'll get to that. This actually came out recently. This is Library of America, if you're not aware of that publisher. These books, man, are beautiful. Okay, so I don't know if this is the complete works, but it's the collected works. So it comes with Norwood, True Grit, The Dog of the South, Masters of Atlantis, Gringos, and Stories and Other Writings. There's some short stories and essays and stuff in here. Let me just take this dust jacket off and show you how absolutely gorgeous this edition is. And of course, camera's not going to do it justice, but this book, man, is beautiful. This is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I like nice-looking books. I'm not the biggest collector in terms of editions, but my God, this is absolutely beautiful. The paper's a little bit thin. It's kind of like Bible paper, but it's like really nice acid-free paper, and it comes with this, the little bookmark. It's a beautiful edition. It's a big one. It's over 1,000 pages, if you could believe it. It doesn't look like it. But I pulled this one out because True Grit is in there, and I read True Grit, and that's a 5-star read easily. It's a super short read. If you've never read True Grit or Charles Portis, just do it. He's one of the greatest American writers. True Grit was seriously one of the best books I ever read. I devoured it in 2 days, and it's basically the story of this 14-year-old girl named Maddie Ross, whose father is killed by one of his workers. So she goes to essentially collect his body and inquire about the killing, and the local law enforcement really isn't interested in helping too much. And by the way, this book takes place in 1870, so in some ways it's a Western, and it does feel like a grand Western, but it kind of reminds me of anti-Westerns and in a way, but it is so unbelievably well written. Maddie Ross is a fantastic character. Maddie Ross, Rooster Cogburn, these main characters, LaBeef, all the characters are really fantastic. It's so dry. It's one of the driest books, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's dry humor. It's very, very funny. It's super well written. It has a wonderful story. It is just one of the most engaging books I've ever read. And basically, Maddie... she inquires if she can find a U.S. Marshal to help her find her father's killer, and that's basically what the book is about. It's absolutely fantastic. If you haven't read it, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a 5-star read. Absolutely, it is just one of the best books I've ever read. The next book, which is the last book I've read recently, is a 5-star read, and this is another one of the best books I've ever read. I have read some 5-star books recently. Last year it was American Psycho, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and what was the other one? There was one really... You by Caroline Kepnes. That was very good. This is if somebody asks me, what's the best book you ever read? This one will probably come to mind first. I don't know if it is, but it's in top 5. Probably top 3, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I have never read Donna Tartt before, but I just decided to, I do this a lot where I want to read an author, and I just keep putting it off. So I just bit the bullet and bought this book, and holy shit, this is really good. I mean, absolutely phenomenal writing. Unbelievably good. This is just so unbelievably good. It's basically about this guy named Richard who goes to a small, not like an Ivy League school, but a small like prep school in Vermont. And he meets this group of kids, maybe like 4 or 5 kids, and they're all classic students, so they're all studying Greek classics and everything like that. And they're just obsessive with that kind of culture. And this book, of course, if you're like a TikTok person, I'm not, but if you are, you might know like Dark Academia. This book very likely inspired that trend, but they're a very close-knit group of kids. They're very neurotic, they're very stuck up, they're very posh, and it's kind of about this dark underbelly of things going on, and that happens. And the way it's written is fascinating in that it tells you, I don't want to spoil anything, of course, but it's just a fascinating way, the way it's written. It tells you what happened and then why it happened, and it's just consistently excellent. And it's very funny as well. Not in the same way as True Grit, where it's very dry humor. This humor is more dark humor, but it is as dark and disturbing as this book can be, and dry at times. It's very wordy at times, this is definitely literature. Like this, there's nothing pulpy about this read, but it's very funny. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to read The Little Friend next. I know people didn't like that one as much, as well as The Goldfinch. People love The Goldfinch, I know, but I know people didn't like Little Friend. But I'd like to go in chronological order of her text. But I feel like I'll probably like Little Friend just because of the ability of her writing. I wish that Donna Tartt was more prolific because, oh my God, I mean, this is I absolutely, I mean, no question, this I absolutely recommend. If you have not read The Secret History and you like to read good writing, get yourself a copy right now. Let's just finish this up with books I've read. Or books I've bought, the rest I've bought. One I don't have with me right now, but it's the Everyman's Library, much in the vein of this one by Charles Portis. It's an absolutely gorgeous hardcover edition, beautiful. But that is James Ellroy, the LA Quartet, so it's the 4 books in that series. So it's a huge, like 1,400 page tome. But I have read some of the Black Dahlia. I had an ebook, and I really liked it, but I stopped reading it. So I'd like to start over and read the quartet. But books I picked up, Revival by Stephen King. I did read this when it came out, but I stopped because I believe I lost my copy. So I'd just like to start this over. I really was enjoying it, and I know people really like this one. I know it's a bleak book, but I know it's like one of Stephen King's more literary offerings. I also have House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, and I did start reading this. I should have mentioned that. I'm about 400 pages in. This is not a book that is good to start and stop with, I should say, so I've kind of, probably not the best idea, but I like it. It's at times it's not rewarding to read, and it's a slog to get through. And at times it's like the best stuff I've ever read. It's totally not for everybody in the way it's written. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but you're going to be reading just like, if you don't know about this book, you're going to be reading, let me just get to some weird shit, like stuff like this. Yeah, we're talking about like that kind of book. The text is extraordinarily dense and complicated. I would say this is one of the most dense and complicated books I've ever read, if not the most. But it's good. I do like it a lot. 2 more I picked up recently. One is The Books of Blood by Clive Barker. This is a hardcover version. I read The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker, and it was beautiful. I didn't know that Clive Barker was an author for the longest time because I just knew him as the director of Hellraiser. I didn't know, that he was an author until a couple of years ago. But I never read anything, and then I read Hellbound Heart, and Yeah, there's a reason he's considered one of the best horror writers. His prose is beautiful. He's a fantastic writer. He really is just wonderful. And I read a couple stories in here, and they're very good. They're really, really, really good. So I'm super glad I picked this up, Books of Blood. I know this put him on the map, but I've never read it, and I'm so glad I got it. And the last one I have is by an author. I have another book of his that I haven't read, and I think I'd like to read that one first. It's Stephen Markley, who wrote Ohio. I read some of it, but I got to get through it. But this is his newest book called The Deluge, and I've heard really good things about this, and this is a huge, 900-page book. But yeah, I've heard this is excellent, so I really, really look forward to reading this. Holy smokes, a lot of books, huh? Yeah, that's what's been up with me, though. Those are all the books that I've read and checked out. And that'll probably no more for a while, right? There's a lot there to keep me going for a while, so that's what I have. Yeah, thanks for watching if anyone checks this out. Of course, I always like hearing from you, so if anyone's still out there, let me know what you've been reading, or what you've been watching or anything. I will do a video soon of Blu-rays I've picked up. Not a lot, just a few things, but I figured I would make it a separate video. Nothing in the clone world. I had those zoologist perfumes, and I didn't really think most of them were very good, so I didn't want to waste my time and make videos on them. The ones that I did review, I did enjoy, though. And yeah, nothing really else. So I've been doing well. I hope you're doing well. Everybody have a great day, and peace out.